So, hi everyone. Well, for me, it's very easy. Matthieu Bordes. I have been working at Lagrange since October '06, so almost 15 years now. I was born in Bordeaux, studied in Bordeaux. I did all my enologist faculty, engineering, agriculture school as well in Bordeaux, and I'm a Bordeaux wine lover. So I've never moved. Nowadays, I travel much more than before, but I have always working in Bordeaux area, left, right bank, south, north, in many different chateaus. But now I'm in Chateau Lagrange for 15 years now, and if you don't know Chateau Lagrange, the key point is that it's a third classified grove, as you mentioned, located in the southwest of Saint Julien.
Let's pull up the map.
Yes, on the map. And it's located at the highest point of the appellation, 24 meters above the sea level. So it's not too high, but it's the highest point. And we have this vineyard. It has never changed for 400 years.
Wow.
So we have 103 plots, means 200. It's 290 acres for American. So quite huge, but in one single block all around the chateau, which makes Chateau Lagrange so unique.
And it is the biggest in the Médoc, or the single biggest?
No, it's the biggest in Saint Julien, but not the biggest classified grove in Bordeaux.
Okay.
And not the biggest chateau, of course.
Right.
We have maybe we are in the top 10 or top 5 biggest classified grove. But the most key point is that the vineyard has never changed, and all the plots we have were classified in 1855 already.
Okay. And so for those of you, I wish I could zoom on Instagram. It is one of the downsides, but if you take a look at this map, you can see Chateau Lagrange is kind of in that slightly western part of the Saint Julien appellation. So you're really smack dab in the middle of the Médoc region on the left bank.
Yeah, exactly located, exactly.
Yeah, it's a little hard to see. You just have to go to Bordeaux and see for yourself.
Exactly. It's a very small place, you know, the appellation of Saint Julien. It's only 920 hectares. 11 chateaus covered 85% of this appellation. We used to say it's the most homogeneous one in the Médoc, in the left bank. It's one of my favorite, of course, maybe my favorite.
You're just a little biased, but no, I agree. Well, since we're talking about the homogeneous kind of all one plot, can you speak a little bit about the style of Chateau Lagrange, how that makes it unique to maybe other properties in Saint Julien? Does it lend to a slightly different style than some of your neighbors, just so that people can kind of understand and differentiate between there's so many wonderful wineries in Saint Julien, but how do you guys stand out within the appellation?
Yeah. As I told you, so only 11 classified grove. I think it's something like 17 or 19 chateaus. So it's quite small on this surface. And we have no first grove in Saint Julien and no fifth grove, only second, third, and fourth grove. And I remember when I was a student, I have my teacher, my professor of enology was the famous Denis du Bourdieu. And when we had some tasting lessons, tasting course, he always presents Lagrange and Lascaz as the typical style from Saint Julien. What is typical style is, to my mind, always a fresh color. It's purity on the nose. You have some cherry, some blackcurrant, spices, tobacco, but it's always very elegant and with some power. We used to say that it's a sort of mix between Pauillac and Margaux, because, you know, Pauillac in the north is usually well known to be more powerful and Margaux more delicate. And Saint Julien is a part of these two appellations. It's a sort of synthesis, but to my mind, it's much more than that, because some Pauillac, some Saint Julien could be closer to Pauillac, some other ones could be closer to Margaux, but Saint Julien Lagrange is a real style, and he had always presented Lagrange as the style of Saint Julien. So in a blind tasting, it's very easy. Not very easy, but with some knowledge, you can easily find a left bank wine, mainly in the north, and Saint Julien is not too difficult to find. And in a benchmark also, because maybe you know, Céline, we do a lot of benchmark at the Chateau. We play a lot. We love that. And Saint Julien has always, very often, a color which looks very fresh, very young. And it's one of the particularities of Lagrange. It's always, or most of the time, nine times out of 10, fresher on the same vintage compared to most of our neighbors. I think it's because of the balance between acidity, because you need to have some acidity if you want to age your wine for a while, for decades. And we have always managed the harmony and the acidity of the wine quite well. My predecessor, Marcel Ducasse, performed very well, and I try to follow the same way.
Well, I think it's interesting also you mentioned the benchmark, which I've had the chance to be a part of, I think is really forward thinking in the sense that, you know, you and your team are constantly tasting wines from all over Bordeaux, not just from Saint Julien, and blind tasting them and really honestly evaluating the wines among some of the greats of, you know, of Bordeaux. And it seems that Chateau Lagrange, whether it's you and your team tasting or visitors, always seems to come up in the top. So it's really interesting to see. And maybe, you know, on this point, you could speak a little bit about the ownership and kind of the philosophy of the chateau and how, you know, how you're able to make these, you know, amazing wines.
You're right. Of course, since the beginning, we have plenty of owners, but we have some owners which were very well known during the 19th or the 18th century, sorry. But since 1983, it's the Japanese family, Keizo Saji, who decided to purchase the chateau. And this guy, the son of the founder of Suntory, was a really Bordeaux wine lover, and especially on the left bank, and Saint Julien wine lovers. And Lagrange was on sale, was for sale at that time. So it was not exactly as the winery looks like nowadays, because it did a lot of investment in the middle of 80s. Just to have an idea, I like to give some numbers because it shows plenty of things. He purchased the estate $10 million almost in the middle of the 80s. It was a huge amount of money. Nowadays, it's close to nothing. But even that, he decided immediately to invest $30 million, 3 times more than he purchased, to renovate everything. The vineyard first, of course, but the chateau, the facilities, the barrel cellar, etc., etc. And with only one philosophy, it was the philosophy of the owner of Suntory. The tagline of Suntory is living in harmony with nature. So by focusing on quality, and the only things he asked to me and my team is to make the best wine as we can. So I'm able to produce a very small quantity of Grand Vin to focus on quality. So I'm maybe one of the most lucky winemakers in Bordeaux.
You are. Whatever you have to do to make the best wine possible.
There is to my mind, there is three points which are very important to that, to perform the quality. First, you need a terroir, and as you know, in Bordeaux, and not only in Bordeaux, but most of the wineries have some. You could have 10 hectares, 20, 30, never mind. You could have some. And the second point is the date of picking, and when you decide to harvest each piece of plot. I mean, it's a question of facilities, investment, technical team as well. It's very important. And the last point is how much selection you are allowed to do by producing. If you are able to produce only 10% of Grand Vin, of course, you will focus on the best of the best plots, and you will do a wonderful Grand Vin and also a wonderful second label.
So you essentially make a selection already in the vineyard, then you know, at the tree when the harvest happens and later?
Exactly. We know almost 80% in the vineyard. We know 80% of the plots, what style of wine they will produce, if they are going to the second label or the first label. We have the data since 1983, so for more than close to 40 years now, and 80% every year. Without not depending on the vintage of the weather conditions, they always goes into the first or second. Okay. So the terroir, it shows you that the terroir is the key point, and 20% it depends on the vintage and also the job we have done in the vineyard during the growing seasons. But the final test is the blend. When we do the blend in January, 3 months later, we have 120 samples, which represent the plots, the intra-plot selection. We taste all blinds with my team. We are 5 enologists on the estate, and we taste all blinds, and we focus just on quality. And we don't want to be influenced by you know, the best plot at the top of the hill. We just focus on the quality of tannins, the nose, the purity, and the elegance, the harmony, the general harmony, and we do the blend like that. So it's the three. In this way, we can focus and be more precise. Right. And thanks to the owner, I always thanks to the owner to allow us to do that.
Yes, it is. It is nice to have that freedom. Someone's asking if the owner comes to the property, if they're implicated in any of the winemaking.
Yes, at the beginning, a long time ago, in the 80s, they went very, very often. Nowadays, less and less, but I'm used to see them once a year. And I'm going 1 or 2 years, 1 or 2 times to Japan. But they are not involved in winemaking. They trust in the French team. But I have only one advice: please make the best one as you can. It's a hard responsibility with my team. But you know, when you are allowed to produce a small one quantity, generally speaking, it's around 30, 35, 40% of Grand Vin. I would say it's quite easy.
So can you tell us a little bit about prior to the current ownership, starting, you said, in 1983, can you kind of walk us through a little bit of the history of Chateau Lagrange, since it's been around for quite some time and it's had some very famous owners? Can you walk us through a little bit of the history?
At the beginning, it started at the Middle Ages. The first traces of Lagrange started in the Middle Ages. And in the 18th century, we had a Brane family, who was a very famous family of Bordeaux, who owned also Chateau Mouton, was the owner during 200 years. They were the owners of Chateau Lagrange. In 1842, we had Count du Châtel, who was the Home Secretary of the King Louis Philippe, and he acquired Lagrange and created the famous tower made by Visconti, the Tuscany Tower. That's now the emblem of the chateau. And this guy, this count, was a real wine lover, and he decided to give up his politician, I would say, politician
role,
work or job, and to invest himself all the time in the chateau to recreate the vineyard, to improve the facilities, and also he was a pioneer, in drainage. He drained all the vineyard. He created a drainage fabric on the estate because he realized that when you don't have any water, when you have a sort of drought in the vineyard, you improve seriously, drastically the quality of the grapes. So he drained all the vineyard, and he was also a pioneer about spraying to prevent the mildew, the powdery on the estate. Then he sold the vineyard. We had a family, the Sandoya family, the Spanish family from 1925, sorry, until 1983. Maybe you know some very old label from Chateau Lagrange with the two conquistadors. It was the period of Manuel Sandoya family, the Spanish family. So, but it was more difficult at that time because of the two world war. We had some difficulties in Bordeaux also about sales. And it's funny, but at the time they earned much more money with the forest and the wood compared to the wine. Nowadays it changed a little
Things
bit.
have changed a little bit, yeah.
So plenty of different family. And what is funny, I remember when I was only 10 years old, when Suntory bought the estate, it was a sort of revolution in Bordeaux because it was the first foreign investor to buy a Grand Cru Classé. And 40 years later, they are still there and very, they are not shy, but they are very discreet and it's very, I appreciate a lot. And all the négociants and I would say the Bordeaux, the Place de Bordeaux, trust a lot in this chateau because they always follow the rules and follow the Bordeaux way of trading and Bordeaux philosophy.
Exactly.
Can
you, if I remember correctly, Chateau Lagrange, there's a meaning behind the name to Lagrange. Where did that come from?
Yes, the term. So the term Lagrange came from this area because in the Middle Ages, a term of grange indicates a vast estate, including church, farm, buildings, housing. And we have some plots in the present day, such as l'Hôpital or La Chapelle, which reminds us of this past. So it's a very old term that grange means a sort of small village, farm, and the name came from that.
Okay. All right.
And that's why also, you know, we use even for our second label or for the Haut-Médoc, some very old name as Les Fièvres or Pagus to remind us of this rich past in the Middle Ages and before Renaissance.
Well, let's actually talk about the lineup of wines, and then at the end I have a separate picture of Pagus. But can you walk us through the range of the chateau for those of you who are connected here? So we, of course, represent Chateau Lagrange. The reds, all three, and the whites are not something that we currently carry, but eventually maybe.
So yes, the most easiest thing is to speak about the white, and we started the white in 1996, Les Arômes de Lagrange, and it's a play on words because arôme in the French pronunciation it's the same as aromas in English. Arôme in English means the calla lily, the flower, because in the lake in front of the chateau we have all these white calla lily. That's the reason why they choose this beautiful name of Les Arômes de Lagrange. It's a small production, 25,000 bottles. Blend is mainly Sauvignon white, Sauvignon gris, and Sémillon. It's a wine that I enjoy a lot during I would say the first 6-7 years because you had a lot of grapefruit, citrus, peach, pear, mango, pineapple on the nose. It's in barrel for aging in barrel, fermented alcoholic fermentation in barrel too, 6 months aging, and usually you can enjoy few months after the bottling and for the next 5, 6, 7 years.
Okay.
We created in 2001, in 2011, the second label, Les Fleurs du Lac, 6,000-7,000 bottles only, to maintain a high level of Les Arômes, and it's make exactly in the same way. It's just a selection of different press or different plots. For the red, in 2012, we created the Haut-Médoc, so named since
one in the middle there.
Magus in the middle, exactly. The idea was exactly the same for the white, to create a wine, a red wine on a fruit, on the red fruit, easy to drink, aged for 12 months in oak, no new oak, it's very important, only used oak, 1, 2, and 3 years old oak. The idea was to have a lot of fresh fruit and to enjoy this wine easily during the first 10, 15 years. But the two flagship, I would say, in Lagrange are Les Fiefs and Chateau Lagrange, of course. The story of Les Fiefs started in 1983. To illustrate what I told you just before, the owner said to Marcel Ducasse, please make the best one as you can. So Marcel said, okay, thank you very much. But we want to create a second label. The goal is to put in this wine the youngest vine, also the vines that we consider the level is not enough to reach what we want to have in Chateau Lagrange. So immediately they produce 60-65% of Les Fiefs, and they choose Fief as a name because Fief is fiefdom in a part of the kingdom of Lagrange. It represents some plots on the estate. And nowadays, I'm very lucky because most of these plots are very old. I have some plots which are 45 years old in Les Fiefs, and on average is 30 years old for Les Fiefs. And it represents 65-70% of the blend. A wine that you can start to enjoy at 2, 3, 4 years, but you can also keep it for 20 years.
Wow.
I tasted several times 96, even 90 or 89 recently, and it was really, really nice.
Wow.
And Lagrange, the flagship.
I can sense the excitement just getting to Chateau Lagrange.
And it represents between 200 and 250,000 bottles a year, to have an idea. So even we have 290 acres on the estate, it's not a lot. It's a really strong selection. Average of the age of the vine is around 45 years old. It's the flagship. Before 1983, all the vineyard was blend all together and create Lagrange. Lagrange is a very strong selection since the 1983 vintage, since the creation of Les Fiefs. The blend is always Cabernet Sauvignon.
Dominant.
Generally, yes, 70. Nowadays, it's much more 70, 75, until 80% in the blend. 20 years ago, it was a little bit less. I'm a really Cabernet Sauvignon wine lover, and I do my best to ripe them almost every year to be able to put a lot of Cabernet Sauvignon, because I consider it's the best grape variety on the left bank on a gravelly soil, and the best grape variety to have some freshness, to keep the freshness, the nice acidity as well with the global warming, and also to be able to have a long cellar aging. With Cab, you can forget the wines for decades.
So here's a picture of the famous gravel soils that are quite conducive to...
We use no insecticide, no herbicide. We plug the soil. We do all by naturally. We have also some organic plots. We have some biodynamic plots. We do a lot of trial on the estate for a long, long time. More than 13 years now for organic way of farming. We are not certified, of course, just 75 acres are for organic and biodynamic.
Okay, so you are testing organic practices and some plots biodynamic to see if it's something you may want to...
Yes, the goal, I'm not a fanatic of organic or a fanatic of traditional, but the idea, because is to use the less things as possible in the vineyard, in the wine. We want to be the safer as possible. So if I found some very good techniques in the organic process, I use it and transfer to the vineyard. But if we have also some very good solution on the normal way of farming or in a sustainable policy, we continue to use them. Because I'm the biggest consumer of Lagrange in the world, and I want to live a little bit older. So we try to spray the less as possible. We try to add almost nothing in the wine. We try to do our best and to make things the more natural as possible.
That makes sense. And on that note, are there particular steps that you're taking to, I can't combat climate change, but to kind of hedge against it for the future? Are you eventually going to change some of the plantings? Are you planning to work differently? What's that going to look like for the next 10, 20, 30 years?
So yes. First, we try to improve the biodiversity to be able to spray the less as possible by having some beehives, sheep. We created some lake. We have more than 40 hectares of forest and mountain. Yes, in the vineyard. So it's very important to maintain a very important biodiversity on the estate. We have also created on the roof of the barrel cellar 800 square meters of solar panel. It's very important to decrease the more as possible, the carbon count. We did the carbon count in 2005. We were the first chateau to do it. We use no insecticide, no herbicide. So plenty of things regarding your environment, but in the vineyard, I try to plant also much more Cabernet. When we have to pull out and replant, I'm thinking about having more Cabernet in the vineyard. Some Petit Verdot as well. We have Petit Verdot for more than 30 years now, but we continue to improve them. 6-7%. It's interesting. Merlot, it's more and more difficult nowadays, to my mind. So if I have the opportunity to change that, I do. I will do it for my successor, because it will be for the next one. Mm-hmm. We thinking about, we de-leaf, of course, on the estate, but it's always a bet in Bordeaux. This year was less sunny than the last 4 years, but we try to sometimes to be able to decrease, to be more flexible in the vineyard, to answer to the climate changes. So we are able to decrease the leaf surface. We are able to improve if it's necessary. We de-leaf only one side, not two sides. If we're thinking that we have some very warm and hot period, it's always a bit. It's really difficult. We try to save a lot of water as well by controlling precisely all the consumption of the estate. Plenty of things, plenty of small details.
It's especially hard since the property is so huge. I mean, because you have teams out there in the fields, it's hard to get everywhere quickly. I mean, for the de-leafing, I would imagine that's a big project.
As you say, it's sometimes more difficult when you are huge, but it's also a strength because you have a lot of facility, and I have a very good team, as I told you, 5 enologists, 2 engineering, agriculture engineer. So when we speak all together, it's very, very efficient, and we have plenty of ideas to try to do our best and to change to put the chateau in the right way for the next decade.
Sounds good. We have a question here. We have 2 questions. One, why is there such a strong proportion of Petit Verdot in certain vintages of Chateau Lagrange?
Petit Verdot is very helpful, especially if you planted them on the best soil, because it's the latest grape variety. So to be sure that they ripe almost every year, you have to plant them on the top soil of the estate. Second point is, very small berries, big concentration of tannins, color, high level of acidity also. It's very interesting to boost the blend, especially when the Merlot and the Cab are not so powerful. It's always interesting to add few percent Petit Verdot. It's not necessary to have 20-30% of Petit Verdot. Sometimes it would be less elegant. You can have you can lose fineness, but having 2, 3, 4, around 10 maximum, it's very, very nice. I enjoy a lot this variety. On the left bank, on a gravelly soil, much better than Cabernet Franc.
Oh, okay.
To my mind. To my mind.
Okay. And we have another question here. How many people work year-round at the property?
We are 55 people, permanent people. But, you know, for Delphine, for green harvest, for red harvest, I could hire until 250 pickers. So on average, we are 80, 85 person
all year long.
All year long, yeah.
Okay. It's a big team. We need a big team to make a great wine.
1 million vines, you know, 1 million vines on the estate.
Yeah.
It's a job.
It's a lot to look after. Well, I think that just about wraps up on our time. I don't know, Matthieu, if there was anything else you wanted to speak about. For everyone who tuned in, thank you very much. We do this every 2 weeks. Next IG Live will be with my colleague David Hunter, most likely still to be confirmed, but most likely with Villa Sandi. So make sure you tune in for that. Matthieu, thank you so much for taking the time to join us during this period where we still can't see each other, but soon enough you'll be here in New York.
We'll be back in New York in a month and a half.
So I look forward to seeing you then. Thank you very much, and everyone else who tuned in, thanks, and see you next time.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.